It's time for Cookies and Crime listener stories. This story was sent in by Gracie. Gracie says, I was driving across country with my mom and sister when I was 7 and my sister was 11. It was late, but we were well rested still and alert. We were driving along an interstate and needed gas and a bathroom break, so we stopped at the only rest stop in 200 miles. There was a van full of teenagers on a road trip at the gas station, as well as a small gray car parked at the pump in front of us, with 2 young men standing still outside of it. When we got there, everything felt wrong. We'd been on the road for days and seen many rest stops at night and have never been afraid until then. My mom and sister went inside and I stayed in the car. I heard the teenagers say they were creeped out and couldn't get the pump to work, and they left in a hurry. I was watching the car in front of us, and the 2 men had not moved at all, not an inch. They weren't talking, they weren't on phones, they were just standing there, still as stone. My sister and mom came running back out to the car, and when they got in, the 2 men slowly turned to look at us while not moving or pivoting the rest of their bodies. And I swear we all saw the same thing. They had eyes dark as pitch and empty. They were truly empty, not black, not reflecting any light at all, just a void. We sped out of there and didn't stop until we were in the next city. The worst thing about the entire experience, we couldn't find the place on any map. We knew exactly which spot on the interstate to look, and we couldn't find it on Google Maps or any paper map we had. We even asked locals about the creepy gas station out on that stretch of road and only got confused looks. We traveled on that interstate again multiple times after that incident, and there is no rest stop. I'm now 29 and happily married with 2 kids, and I've taken my kids down that way, but there never is a gas station. I'm always wondering every minute of my day if those teenagers got out safely, or if the 2 guys got to them. What do you guys think happened? Was it a glitch in the Matrix? Was it a black-eyed children type of situation? Let me know in the comments, and thank you, Gracie, for sharing your story.
This mother hid sticky notes in her daughter's sock to be saved from captivity. This 28-year-old mother and 2 kids, 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, Mason Dominguez, were held captive by a man named Brandon Tusland. This all started in January 2021 when the father of the 2 kids, Eli Dominguez, passed away from pneumonia. The mother was happily married to Eli, but since his death, she began to struggle financially. That's when Eli's former friend, Brandon, offered to support her and her 2 kids. In March 2021, the mother and 2 kids moved into Brandon's home, and that's when he became controlling and abusive. He alienated her from her family, made her quit her job, and confiscated her phone. He put locks on the bedroom doorknobs, installed motion sensors, and duct taped her to the bed. She was also handcuffed when she rode in the car with him. But one day, the mother spotted a sticky notepad and a pen in his car, and that's when she began a weeks-long plan to seek help. The mother found the perfect chance to put a sticky note in her daughter's sock, and on February 22nd at 8:40 a.m., the 7-year-old girl went to school and gave the sticky note to her teacher. The note said that her mother was being held against her will and she needed help right away. School officials notified authorities and Brandon was arrested right away. But it doesn't end there. This is when things get super disturbing. Brandon kept her kids away from her most of the time, and especially when she was locked up. And she actually had not seen her 4-year-old son, Mason Dominguez, since December 11th, and she suspected he was dead. When the mother lost full contact with her son, she knew she had to find a way out to save her and her daughter. When police searched his house, they found the remains of 4-year-old Mason Dominguez in his freezer in his garage.
It's time for Cookies and Crime. This is the story of Tilly Klemek. Tilly was born on October 22, 1877 in Poland. When she was 4, her family immigrated to the United States. They settled in the Little Poland section of Chicago, Illinois. Tilly married her first husband, John Mickiewicz, in 1985. The marriage appeared to be a happy one, and the couple was well liked in their community. Tilly earned a reputation as a good cook who had the ability to predict people's deaths. She claimed these predictions came to her in dreams, and Tilly had many of them. Usually the dreams consisted of stray dogs that annoyed her or a nasty neighbor. But at the beginning of 1914, Tilly began telling friends and neighbors about a new vision. She dreamt her husband Joe was sick and that he would die within weeks. Then a few weeks later, on January 13th, 1914, her dream came true. He passed away by what the coroners said was heart trouble. And Tilly collected around $1,000 in life insurance. Just a month after his death, Tilly married Joseph Ruskowski on February 27, 1914. Once again, she told people she had a vision that her husband would die soon. And Joseph, who was the picture of health, started to get sick by May. And just as Tilly predicted, Joseph passed on May 20th. He left Tilly with $1,200 in cash and $722 in insurance. You could say that Tilly had really bad luck, or she had the greatest ruse. You see, Tilly wasn't really having premonitions. She was just stating times of deaths and killing her victims on that day. Shortly after Joseph's death, Tilly sought comfort in the arms of another man, Joseph Guskowski. I guess she really has a thing for Joes. His sister Stella enjoyed candy with her brother and his new sweetheart. Both of them became violently ill, and Tilly's latest husband died. She married another man named Frank, and he also died shortly after. She even taunted Frank with this prediction, saying it'll be any day now. Her last husband would be a wealthy man named, you guessed it, Joseph. A few weeks later, Joseph realized he was getting very sick. He went to the doctors and they saw that his symptoms were consistent with arsenic poisoning. Joseph recalled that their dog keeled over dead after eating a scrap of food from Tilly, and also the soup she gave him tasted strange. Hospital officials called the police, who promptly arrested Tilly. When they asked her where she got the poison, Tilly admitted she got it from her cousin, Nellie Kulik. Investigators exhumed the bodies of Tilly's dead husbands as well as Nellie's first husband. All of them had lethal quantities of arsenic in their bodies. Nellie only spent 1 year behind bars, but Tilly was given life without parole, the harshest sentence ever dealt to a woman in Chicago. She died in 1936.
Have you guys heard about the doctor who allegedly murdered 25 patients? 46-year-old Dr. William Hustle worked at the Mount Carmel West Hospital in Ohio when he was charged with 25 counts of murder but was only tried for 14 of those cases. William was accused of prescribing too much fentanyl to critically ill patients for 3.5 years, which resulted in their deaths. The case came to light in the fall of 2018 when pharmacists voiced concerns over the high amount of doses ordered by William. From the start, William has maintained his innocence, and his defense team argued that the patient's conditions caused their deaths and that the large doses were necessary to allow them to die in comfort and dignity after taking off ventilators. But prosecutors argued that William's practices went far beyond the norm. He ordered 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl for multiple patients, which is about 10 times more than the recommended dosage. A pharmacist testified that he initially wondered whether someone was stealing the medication. A patient named Troy Allison went to the hospital because he was struggling to breathe and had multiple health issues, and that's when William administered 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl without waiting for the CT scan, and Troy was later pronounced dead. William was initially charged in June 2019, but on April 20th, 2022, after a 7-week trial and 5 days of deliberation, William was found not guilty for the death of 14 patients. Have you guys heard about the couple who murdered a 6-year-old little boy during a road rage incident? On May 21st, 2021, 25-year-old Marcus Aries and 23-year-old Wynn Lee were driving on the 55 freeway in Orange County. That morning, Marcus and Wynn had a confrontation with Joanna Clunan, who was driving her 6-year-old son Aiden to kindergarten. It is alleged that Joanna stuck her middle finger out at Marcus and Wynn, and that's when Marcus pulled out his gun and shot at Joanna's vehicle. Aiden was sitting in his booster seat on the right rear passenger side when the bullet entered his stomach. Aiden's older sister recalls some of Aiden's final words. He said, "Mommy, my stomach hurts," and then he passed away 30 minutes later. A week later, Marcus and Wynn had another confrontation with a Tesla driver where he got angry and pulled out his gun again and threatened the driver. At this point, police were desperately looking for Marcus's white Volkswagen. When Marcus and Wynn realized that police were searching for them, they changed their appearance, hid their car, and quit their jobs. Marcus was charged with murder and faces a maximum sentence of 40 years to life in prison. Wynn was only charged for being an accessory and only faces a maximum sentence of 3 years in prison. This 11-year-old spent almost 10 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. In 2009, 11-year-old Jordan Brown was charged and arrested for murdering his father's pregnant fiancée, Kenzie Hoke. In the early morning of February 20th, 2009, 8-month pregnant Kenzie was at home while her fiancé Chris was getting ready for work. Kenzie was at home with her 4-year-old daughter, Adeline, while her 7-year-old daughter, Janissa, was getting ready to go to school with Jordan. At around 8:15 that morning, Jordan and Janissa left the house and made their way to school. At 9 a.m., tree trimmers arrived to the house to do some work, and they found Kenzie's 4-year-old daughter, Adeline, crying, saying that her mother was dead. The next day, officers arrested and charged 11-year-old Jordan for the murder of Kenzie and her unborn baby. In the house, investigators found a shotgun that belonged to Jordan, which was a Christmas gift from his father. The gun smelled like it had recently been fired, and gun residue was found on Jordan's clothing. But according to investigators, the strongest piece of evidence came from Kenzie's 7-year-old daughter, Janissa. Janissa initially said that nothing unusual happened that morning before school, but when she was re-interviewed, she mentioned that she did hear a loud boom that sounded like a gunshot. Chris was extremely devastated over his fiancée and unborn baby's death, but he was also dealing with his son's case and ultimately believed that Jordan was innocent. Chris traveled 4 hours every single day to visit his son at the detention center in Erie County, Pennsylvania. Almost 9 years later, in July 2018, Jordan's case was heard by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and agreed that the court failed to prove Jordan guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The court ruled that there was insufficient evidence to prosecute Jordan, so at 20 years old, Jordan was set free. Investigators still say that there is no doubt in their minds that Jordan was guilty, and the motive behind it was because he was jealous of the relationship between his father and his soon-to-be stepmom. So have you guys heard about this case? And if you have, do you think Jordan was really guilty for the murder of Kenzie Hoke? It's been almost 2 years since Leslie Palacios' murder, and her killer is still on the run. At around 12 a.m. on August 29, 2020, 22-year-old Leslie Palacio went to the Longhorn Hotel and Casino in Vegas with a family friend, 25-year-old Eric Rangel Ibarra. At 1:56 a.m., Leslie and Eric are seen leaving the casino together, and they both get into Eric's white truck. At 4:40 a.m., Leslie texted her sister Carly saying, "Dude, I got some shit to tell you." Carly immediately called and texted her sister back, but she did not receive a response the entire night. A neighbor's home surveillance shows Eric and Leslie arriving to his house at 6 a.m., and it looks like Leslie is having a hard time walking and Eric is helping her in the house. An hour later, Eric and his father Jose are seen carrying out Leslie's lifeless body and putting her into the white pickup truck. Eric's father Jose was then seen hosing off the driveway. Leslie's family filed a missing person report that same day, and they went to Eric's house to ask his family if they've seen or heard from Eric and Leslie. But they were acting very suspicious and were later seen moving out of their house. On September 9th, 2020, police found Leslie's lifeless body in the Valley of Fire area in Nevada. To this day, Leslie's cause of death has not been determined. Both Eric and his father Jose abandoned their white truck in Perris, California, and fled to Mexico. On January 2021, Jose was detained in the San Diego border, and when he was asked where his son was, he said he did not know. When investigators asked Jose what happened to Leslie, he said that she passed away from an overdose, and they thought the best thing to do was to get rid of her body. Jose was charged with accessory to commit murder and destroying evidence. And get this, he was only sentenced to 2 years in prison. Like, what? And as you know, Eric is still currently on the run, and Leslie's family just wants some justice.